Welcome back to TNLP, the newsletter podcast brought to you by the HazMat Guys. I'm your host, Timmy, back with this week's latest HazMat news. Before we jump in, we're in the final stretch to lock in the conference rate for accommodations at the southernmost HazMat conference. Here's your reminder to submit the Google form linked under accommodations on the hazmatguys.com/conference to claim the special conference rate at the Beachside Resort and residences in Key West, Florida, February 3rd through 5th. Kicking off our hazmat news this week, we'll start on the West Coast, where a hazardous materials response team was dispatched Thursday morning to the Titan Cold Storage Facility on Browning Road in Delano, following an ammonia leak. Jeremy Ruiz from the Kern County Fire Department explained that many cold storage facilities, or those with large refrigeration units, often contain ammonia and ammonia pumps. So with a leak like this, they're going to need to close valves. And they have to do that in a fully encapsulated suit, Ruiz said. So that means their suit is completely closed off to any of the outside environment. So no air is getting in, no liquid is getting in. Ammonia poses an inhalation hazard that can damage the respiratory system or cause chemical burns to the skin, prompting a shelter-in-place advisory. Ruiz noted that once the hazard is fully mitigated and no leaks are confirmed, the advisory can be lifted. He emphasized the need for firefighters to proceed cautiously during hazmat calls due to the potential danger of the chemicals involved. And what that does is it creates this environment where we capture everybody that's involved in the facility. Anybody who knows anything about the product, the system, and we get them all together. We talk through, assess, make a plan, Ruiz said. Ammonia is one of the most common hazmat calls we see in the industry. If it's not a second nature response protocol at this point, check out the HazMat Guys course offerings on scenarios like this one and others at the hazmatguys.com/training. Moving right along, residents living in a neighborhood on San Antonio's north side woke up to a major law enforcement operation on Friday, which included the presence of armed federal agents and first responders in hazmat suits. Ken's 5 brings us the story. Almost looked like a movie set, said neighbor Yvette Harm. It's pretty jarring. The Drug Enforcement Administration, DEA, San Antonio Police and Fire Departments responded to the scene along the 13000 block of Stony Hill. Harm said she and her husband drove by the scene and saw hazmat teams and multiple police officers. You're not used to seeing this kind of activity, Harm said. Ken's 5 and neighbors observed hazmat teams handling several items laid out on a blue tarp in front of a home, though it's unclear what was being collected or tested. One neighbor, who asked not to be identified, described a tense moment when armed federal agents crowded the front door of the home. He was just wearing his underwear, the neighbor said. It's cold out and they put him in handcuffs. Neighbors noted the residents of the home often worked in their garage and had kept to themselves, but Friday's activity left many uneasy and curious about what investigators were looking for. Harm is hoping the incident doesn't dampen the spirit of the neighborhood. How safe are the neighbors in the area? Harm said. Ken's 5 reached out to the DEA for more information about the investigation, but has not yet received a response. Concluding this week, our last story takes us to the San Diego area where California Highway Patrol officers closed lanes of the I-15 southbound just north of the port of entry at the United States and Mexico border due to a gas truck collision and hazardous material spill. The crash occurred just after 11:45 p.m. Thursday, when a gas tanker collided with a guardrail, according to Caltrans and CHP. Officers initiated a SIG alert and closed the lane at 12:30 a.m., diverting traffic during cleanup from the crash. All lanes to the port of entry were closed for several hours overnight. For reasons that were not yet clear, the gas truck collided with about 30 feet of concrete center block and 300 feet of metal guardrail, damaging both, along with multiple metal posts, CHP dispatch reported. A crew was sent to conduct repairs, which were expected to take most of the day on Friday. There was a conversation as to who owned and was responsible for repairing the damaged property, the state or the federal government. A hazardous materials team was called to the scene to assist with the cleanup on federal property, according to dispatchers. Meanwhile, U.S. Customs officials installed temporary barriers to block off the damaged section of the wall, and lanes began to reopen slowly as of 5 a.m. The southbound 805 was not affected by the incident, CHP said. The federal government will handle repairs south of Camino de la Plaza, and no state property or state safety barriers were damaged in the incident, according to CHP Dispatch. The feds already have temporary barriers and are working with their own contractors for repair work. That's going to do it for this week's edition of the Newsletter Podcast. Make sure to mark your calendars for November 6th, where we'll be doing a Nerd the Game takeover on the Roundtable to bring you the world premiere of Nerd Online. Catch us at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on YouTube Live. You're not going to want to miss this one. Until next time, Timmy, over and out.